Mansfield.
EA didn't see it happening this way. FIFA International Soccer was a low-budget project made by a small team based on a sport few in the North American company's upper echelons cared about. If things had carried on as they were going in 1993, the game would either have been quietly shunted out the door at some point in 1994 to cash in on the World Cup, that year being held in the US, or the entire thing would have just been cancelled. Fortunately, somebody walked past a door. An EA executive walking past the office where the game was being developed heard the whooping and cheering of some of the game's developers as they played what was then titled EA Soccer. Regular, unimportant games don't get that kind of reaction. Special ones do. The word went up the chain and the decision came back down again. This had to come out for Christmas. Soon enough, EA Soccer became FIFA International Soccer, and it moved in the pecking order from a low to mid-level project to one the higher-ups were actually paying attention to, though not quite to the level of the studio's Madden or NHL titles. Not yet. The rest is a blur of gimmicks and bad games and good games and great games and disguised gambling and genuine influence on the real-world sport and so much more. But it was that first FIFA that started it all. What was it about this game? What was it that made it stand out, that made it so special, that made it the high bar for football games from the point of its release in December of 1993? It helps to look at what the competition was at the time, the football games that were out there before FIFA's release. In the arcade, a place that still mattered back then, you were looking at titles like Super Sidekicks for your very Neo Geo take on footballing fun. A great game, no doubt, but not something you were getting at home unless you were a billionaire who owned an AES. You could have played the home port of Tecmo World Cup 90, of course, but you wouldn't want to do that because it was garbage as much fun as the coin-op version was. Back at home, you could look to the world of computers for an early 90s great in the form of Sensible Soccer, which had taken the Amiga by storm in 1992. By the end of 1993, a version had actually released on consoles, around the same time as FIFA actually, but it never really caught on with Sega and Nintendo fans. Seems the general mood at the time was it looked old. It didn't have enough pizzazz. And that even though consoles were oddly barren for great football games. As I say, Sensi was there, but had been ignored. Striker was another one ported from computer to console with a SNES version in 1992. It was... yeah. Also on SNES was Super Soccer, a neat demonstration of the system's Mode 7 sprite rotation capabilities, but not a particularly good game. On the Mega Drive, meanwhile, and apart from Sensi, there were games like World Cup Italia 90, which was a thing everybody played but nobody liked, and what the hell was that noise? European Club Soccer made an appearance too, but just like Sensi was a port, with a name change, of an Amiga game, that being Manchester United Europe, and it was easy to ignore. Some others had reared their heads. Nothing had made an impact on console. International Superstar Soccer was still the better part of a year away, but nothing had captured the impact of football as a sport, the big-time presentation, the world-class players, the luxury of, especially in the early 90s, European and South American footballers. Most of the stuff out there was a hangover from the 8-bit generation and hadn't quite caught on to the fact that football was on the cusp of becoming a sport centred on an incredible amount of money. They all felt cheap, mucky, from a world of half-cooked microwave pies and hooliganism rather than champagne and prawn sandwiches. FIFA International Soccer was rich, lush, detailed. You assumed, just from looking at it, from watching it in action, that it was a luxury recreation of football, that it was the best we'd ever seen of the beautiful game on console. Doing a lot of heavy lifting there was that striking perspective. This was, as far as I can tell, the first football game to feature an isometric faux 3D camera angle on things. You could see more of the world around the pitch, making it feel more like an actual place. And those animations! Luxury, it really was. And EA was all too keen to tap into the hype around it looking good, let's not forget. They knew what they were doing. Especially because the game itself wasn't actually that great. If you'd played Sensible Soccer, maybe opting for it on Mega Drive over FIFA, you were playing one of the most subtly tactical and smart games of football you could at the time. If you were playing FIFA, you'd soon learn to keep on tapping C, shoot, in order to win. I remember doing this as a kid, so attempted it on replaying the game for this match after I'd gone 3-0 down. Dear viewer, I did indeed win that match. It was nigh on impossible to do any reasonable dribbling, at least against the AI, while passing was largely a joke and the lob button was something most of us would ignore. The computer would teleport the ball to its feet as a tackle in decidedly unfair ways. You could stand right in front of the keeper, forcing them to kick the ball against you and bagging a cheap goal. You could run away from the referee for as long as you could keep it up in order to postpone your marching orders. The first FIFA was not by any stretch a perfect or distinctly polished game when it came to anything beyond the on-pitch presentation. Multiplayer was, of course, where the game really shone, and EA's inclusion of a 4-player mode, by no means the standard in 1993, was a stroke of minor genius. And a stroke of massive advertising, given so much in the game hyped up 4-way play. It was playing against friends and enemies that helped FIFA sell 500,000 units in the UK alone within a month of its release. It was number 1 in the UK charts for an extended period. FIFA had landed with much more impact than EA ever expected, and, well, honestly it's hard to see the context of it all through modern eyes, even though I lived through it. I know I played a lot of it as a kid, so it must have been doing something different, something exciting and better than the rest. But it helps to contextualise, so let's take some examples from contemporary reviews of the game. Everything combines to make Electronic Arts' FIFA Soccer a stunning footy game. While it could certainly do with having more control over events, as it is, nothing can touch it. EA's game is a joy to play, but it doesn't have either the free flow or strategic depth of Sensible Soccer. Try to play a smooth passing game here and you'll come unstuck pretty quickly. The best way to play is to continually punt the ball around in vague general directions and react to what happens when it gets there. FIFA Soccer was obviously created with an American audience in mind, with all the thrills of football, loads of goals, flash moves, etc., but ultimately didn't satisfy me. It's not a crap game by any stretch of the imagination, and it's brilliant that it literally offers a new perspective on the sport, but it's not as good as Sensible Soccer. The first few matches we had in the office were pretty scrappy as everyone kept using the shoot button to knock the ball up the field. Although we gradually refined our tactics to include some passing, the game still encourages a lot of kicking the ball behind the defence and chasing. Not that anybody will know this outside of work, but I do actually work with Phil at the time of making this video. Yes, it is a small industry. No, that's not his accent. I'm sure a lot of people will buy it as soon as they see it playing, simply because it looks and sounds so amazing.
Basically, this is an utterly brilliant game and definitely the best sporting simulation I've ever played. The graphics are superb, the animations are the most detailed I've seen, and the isometric viewpoint puts a whole new perspective on the genre.
Yes, that's your boy from Digital Foundry, also not his real accent. Whereas Sensible has all these subtleties and nuances of football in terms of passing, dribbling and positional play, this hasn't. It's too rigid in its patterns of play. Once you've mastered the techniques and are past the stage of playing inch-perfect passes to no one in particular, games can still tend to degenerate into frantic kick and rush affairs. If, say, you and a crowd of your mates decided that a tournament would be a good way to pass a wet afternoon, even the ones that weren't actually playing would be entertained by the action. Not something you can say about Sensible Soccer.
Rather than go for the super slick perfection of Sensible Soccer, EA have gone for a slower paced, graphically superior game that relies on atmosphere rather than ultra fast dynamics.
I cherry-picked those quotes, of course, and generally speaking, FIFA got high marks across the board, as you can see. Plus, both the boys and girls on Bad Influence gave it 5 stars, and Jazz Rignall said it was his favourite sports game of the year on GamesMaster. The truly important opinions. So yeah, it seems like my modern reading of the game was pretty bang on, including the fact that you just hammered C to win against the AI, or to try and win against friends. My memory was, for once, not faulty. We were indeed just drawn in by the game's sexiness. We were drawn in by the hype too, with EA setting a pattern that continues to this day. Magazine covers popped up about the place, even covers months after FIFA's release would name drop the game because it had such a powerful fame behind it already. The USA World Cup happened in 1994, and even though FIFA wasn't licensed for the tournament proper, it's sure to have ridden on the coattails of that event too. It wasn't meant to be this big, but EA wasn't going to let a potential moneymaker slip through its hands. And so, of course, there were ports to follow. The Mega Drive was the home of FIFA, of course, and it's the version that receives most of the plaudits, that conjures up most of the nostalgic memory bleating you hear in videos like this. But EA has always been EA, so of course that first game made itself known across the gaming gamut. You had an encroachment into computer territory with versions released both on the Amiga, with all the wonderful endless loading and disk swapping you could ever want, and a DOS version, should that be DOS, that was fine? Fine. Eventually a Mega CD version arrived, itself an upgrade of the original game, though not quite a sequel, basically being Mega Drive FIFA with some added loading screens and tweaks and tucks to make it a less buggy, fairer, more football-y version of the first release of the game. So, Mega Drive Plus, let's go with. It was the best original version of the game, I'd say. On the SNES, things took a wild pivot thanks to EA's inability to put its sports games on Nintendo's console without thoroughly breaking them in one way or another. The main reason FIFA is remembered as a Mega Drive game, and not one for anything else, is because the Sega console's main competitor ended up with a mangled version of the game and so was promptly forgotten while Soup's owners went back to playing Super Mario World or whatever. I mean, it wouldn't be too long till ISS came out, so they got through things just fine. There were 2 ports though, well, one batch of ports and one singular port that showed what EA's intentions were with FIFA. There was money to be made by bringing the game to the 8-bit machines, with the Game Gear and Master System getting their usual run out of the same game on different sized screens, developed by masters of doing bad stuff Tiertex. There was a Game Boy version too, because EA wasn't about to leave that money on the table even if the game coming out of it would be nigh on unplayable. This batch of ports showed there was little to no interest in looking back, that EA was focused on making FIFA the new generation of football games for a new generation of consoles, not the underpowered rubbish that had come before, which was where the singular port showing EA's intentions came in. FIFA on 3DO, the failed CD-based console that by 1994 hadn't quite failed yet. The 3DO was more powerful than anything else the original FIFA released on, and rather than just porting the Mega Drive version to the console, EA instead made an effort. It tried something different. FIFA on 3DO was, in hindsight, a test bed for what EA wanted to do with the series, what it would do with the series in future. It featured full 3D stadia and pitches with changeable camera angles, improved graphical detail across the board, and a 6-player mode for those with enough bodies to fill the roles. Yes, the general game wasn't too dissimilar from what had come before, and it still wasn't up to Sensi's standards as a flag bearer of technical, tactical action football games, but 3DO FIFA was a big step up and showed, more clearly than anything else, that this was a series EA had made for the future of gaming, not the past, and not even the now. Of course, there would be a wait before that future arrived. FIFA 95 exclusively released on Mega Drive in 1994, improving the game in many ways but not really moving things forward. But FIFA 96 arrived on the new generation of consoles, the Saturn and PlayStation, stepping things up presentationally to a level the old consoles couldn't hope to keep pace with. Just as EA had wanted from the get-go, the previous generation had immediately been left behind. FIFA was a game for the future, and, well, into the future it would go. I I don't want to focus on what FIFA became, on its all-encompassing monolith status these days, on how the death of PES has led to FIFA being the only worthwhile football game in town. I don't want to talk about the controversy of Ultimate Team teaching kids gambling is great, or how the corrupt organisation of FIFA tried to scalp EA for more money and the licence is now, probably at the time of recording this, dead. I don't want to talk about the future of the franchise, the incredible crossover with real-life football FIFA has had, or its impact on popular culture. I just want to look at the first FIFA. I want to look at it and wonder and laugh and be frustrated. To remember what it was right there at the beginning. And to stand in front of the keeper to nick another cheap goal.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Thanks to my $5 and above patrons for helping make stuff like this doable and viable and pleasant for everyone. You're all great. And even more thanks to the top tier folks, who are top tier both in that they contribute to the top tier levels on my Patreon, but also because they're morally top tier, I think. Lola Osman, Paintball Magazine PBM, Takara Hoshi. Bye!